And welcome back for episode 4 of The Block Party, North Central Ohio's first and only volleyball show right here on the OH Report, presented by Bob and Bob Door in Mansfield. We have a lot to cover here today on this episode. My name is Jonathan Langdon here at the OH Report. We've got our OH recap coming up first, but we've got tournament talk as well. Plenty of coaches joining us to talk about the next coming few weeks. Let's go ahead and jump, however, right back to that OH recap. We had 8 games that we're going to give you the scoop on. And starting things out on Thursday night, Orrville dismantled Canton South in straight sets. The freshman Madison Kraft got a chance to match her career high with 16 kills, also got 10 digs for the double-double. JC Malpus also added 11 kills and 2 blocks. The win snapped a 3-game losing streak, putting the Lady Riders back on track in time for a potential tournament run. Team we haven't gotten to see as much of, Loudonville. They took a successful road trip to Howard, knocking down East Knox in a sweep. Sophie Schultz is a top candidate for KMAC Player of the Year, and she proved it at the Dog Pound, recording 16 kills while hitting .324. Also booked for 2 blocks and 10 digs in the contest. 4 Lady Redbirds left Howard with 10 or more digs in a well-rounded defensive effort, as Loudonville has now won 6 of their last 7 matches. The Firelands Conference is decided, and Monroeville wins their 4th straight outright league title after a 5-set classic against Norwalk St. Paul. There was some juice in the building for this one, as Alexa Adams saved her best performance for the biggest game of the year. A season-high 20 kills paced the Eagle offense for a gutty win over the Lady Flyers. So the winning streak extends to 16. Some more numbers on these Monroeville seniors: 4 league trophies in 4 years, 55-1 in the Firelands Conference, 2 district titles, and a regional title, including a trip to the state title game 2 seasons ago. And they aren't done yet, folks. One final go-around in the tournament to pursue more greatness for this senior class from the Eagles. Jump into Monday night now as Lucas ends the year the right way with a 5-set win over Cardington. It's their 4th win of the year as 4 seniors ended their careers in the Cub Cave Monday night. Olivia Collar, Morgan Trumpauer, and Katie Griffey, along with my story of the week, Maya Midkiff. It was a bittersweet as she returned to action for the first time since mid-September. With the opportunity to serve, she recorded 5 aces in this game to help them get the 5-set victory. Jumping over to the Furnace at Mansfield Christian as the sweep went the visitors' way, this time with Northmore getting the win. The Golden Knights combined for 12 aces in a well-spread team effort. 5 Lady Knights also put up 4 or more kills. Nobody was over 6. Their season ended Tuesday night at the hands of Loudonville, however, but their eyes are fixed in Northmore on a playoff run beginning next week on the road. Heading over to Tuesday night, make it 3 straight league titles for Centerburg after their sweep of Fredericktown. The KMAC runs through Centerburg outright for a 2nd straight year as the Lady Trojans saw both sophomores Sedona Weisbrod and Jasmine Larimore combine for 31 kills in just 3 sets. Not to be forgotten, the sophomore Jalen Caldwell also dished out 33 assists along with 8 digs and 3 aces. The squad with just 1 senior who was celebrated tonight prior to their game with River Valley is primed to turn some heads in a stacked Central District in Division 5. And another title chase got a little bit more interesting as Mohawk crawls all the way back, tying the N10 lead with Buckeye Central in a win in 4 sets. Since our first episode of this show aired on September 18th, those Mohawk Warriors are now 8-1. Chloe Miller, Mara Haynes, and Biz Klopp spearheaded the attack in this game with 34 combined kills. Emerson Gurney puzzled that Buckette serve-receive team, racking up 4 aces along with 24 digs. So much happened over the past week. 8 games, all 8 are going to be showcased with top shelf highlights that you will see after the break here on the Block Party, presented by Bob and Bob Dorr.
The Block Party, North Central Ohio's only volleyball show, is presented live and free to fans by the door experts at Bob and Bob Door Company, dedicated to providing fast, friendly, and reliable service for over 56 years. And now, let's get you back to the Block Party, streaming exclusively on OH Report.
Who do you want to shout out in YouTube and Facebook land?
My family, Addison, and Coach K.
Buck.
Yeah, of course. So I want to shout out my teammates, the coaches, and obviously everyone that came here to support me. I love everyone here that came here, and I just feel so special and just great for it. So thank you, everyone.
I want to give a shout out to my family and Biz Klopp and Elise Meyer.
Shout out to Coach all my coaches, Coach Dub, Coach Lacey, Pruitt, Coach Midday, and shout out to my mom, April, and all my family for coming to support me.
We return from our first commercial break, and you know what that means here on the Block Party. It is time for our top shelf highlights, but first, we had a vote go around for your favorite highlight from last week, and your winner is... yet again, Reese Redmond back-to-back, and this one well-deserved as she finds the back corner almost perfectly, paints it right on that line where those two meet. Great job from Reese Redmond, yet again coming away as our winner handily as the top shelf highlight. So congratulations to Reese Redmond. New episode, new installment of our top shelf highlights. We return with new ones to the shelf. Who will make it to the top? Your votes will decide once again. Taking it to play number 1, it comes from the Cougar Den as Jillian Weaver uses the left hand to smack one past Plymouth in the early going. The seniors shined on her special night along with her 3 fellow seniors in their sweep of the Big Red. How about some hustle for play number 2? The acrobatics shown off by Mohawk's Emily Brickner to keep this ball up for the Lady Warriors. Plays like these were all over this crucial N10 battle as Mohawk finds themselves tied at the top after a 4-set win over Buckeye Central. Sticking with the defense, and this time it turns into offense. Another league title being decided over in Centerburg as sophomore Jalen Caldwell gets dirty to stay alive for the point, and her effort is rewarded later in the volley as the ball works around to Jasmine Larimore, who finishes the job for the Lady Trojans. Let's stay in KMAC country as the dog pound was taken over by a flock of redbirds. Sophie Schultz put some pace on this ball that catches a Lady Bulldog toward the face. The senior showed the East Knox crowd why she's a top contender for KMAC Player of the Year. We take a 2-hour drive up to number 5 on our list as St. Paul's Brooklyn Cassidy sets the tone for the match as she pummels this ball on a beautiful quick set by Annie Friend. No chance for any Monroeville Eagles to fall in front of this quick hitter by the Flyers. Our new friends in Orrville gave us our first yummy ball at play number 6 as the freshman Madison Kraft had her way with Canton South last Thursday. The Wildcats put it on a platter for her, and well, the freshman ate. Play number 7 is presented by the Northmore Lady Knights. How about another quick set? Cammie Workman to Hannah James. The connection has been pure all season long, but the Knights put a little extra into this sweep over Mansfield Christian. And a special occasion at number 8. Out since mid-September due to injury, Lucas senior Maya Midkiff would not let an ankle brace keep her out of this game. On senior night, Maya steps up and delivers back-to-back aces to help her team break out to an early lead against Cardington. Midkiff went on to stack 5 aces on the Lady Pirates en route to a Cub win in their final regular season game. Those were your candidates for the week's Top Shelf Highlight, presented by Bob and Bob Dorr in Mansfield. Vote below now for your favorite for this week's Top Shelf. And let's take it back, and before we get to some tournament brackets, which is the big thing we're going to be doing on this show, some congratulations are in order. Had some special messages come in over the week about some milestones hit by some of our area teams, so want to give some time to spotlight those. First off, looking at Orrville, new team here to the OH Report. Congratulations to Hannah Krosky, who we actually got to catch on the broadcast, surpassed 1,000 career assists against Canton South. She has been a really good piece to what Orrville has done this season. Congratulations in order to her. Elsewhere, East Knox, Addison Mistaka, shout out to you wherever you are tonight. You surpassed 1,000 career digs and serve receives in the Devil Dog game a couple days ago. We've had you spotlighted on our Top Shelf highlight a number of times. Congratulations to you as well. Your opponent from last week, however, in Loudonville, Addison Wolford, was able to surpass 1,000 career serve receives in that win over the Lady Bulldogs on Thursday. And then finally, a team that we covered all the way to the state Final Four last year, Shelby. Madison Henkel, a big piece for them in that state Final Four run, even bigger piece this year with this year's squad. She deserves a shout out as well for reaching 1,000 career kills. And with that, it is now time for the bulk of our broadcast here today for the show. We've got tournament brackets and we are ready to show you 17 districts that are going to be decided with some of our local teams in the mix. Let's go ahead and start out with a team that we cover a lot for football, but we want to give them the shout out they deserve for volleyball. Headed to D2, Central 2, Big Walnut, 16-5 on the season. They handled the MOAC foe of Marion Harding, who they will play in the district semifinal. Highland, one of the favorites in that league. They handled them pretty easily, so you're looking at that matchup against Harding. Should be able to cruise to a win over 6-16, those Lady Presidents. Mount Vernon also in this district. They sit as the 11th seed, getting set to take on Tays Valley. Both of those district semis will be hosted at the higher seeded site. And then after that, they will play at Central Crossing for a district title. Up next is D3 Northwest 2. A lot of interesting teams in our Richland and Ashland County areas. In this one, Ashland and Shelby primarily going to be taking on each other. Ashland sits 12-9 at the time of this recording. They finished 4th in the OCC. They were up there in that conversation for a little bit. They have not beaten Shelby, the team that they have drawn in sectionals, since 2013. So it would be a big milestone for them, and it would be a big heartbreak for Shelby after making it all the way to Dayton last year to bow out early to the Arrows. Also, Mansfield Senior, they've got some work to do to get themselves to a sectional title game. They still have to take on Sandusky, and after that, they got the 1-seeded Columbia Raiders. Going to be a tough go for this Mansfield Senior squad if they want to make some noise in the postseason. On to D3, Northwest 3. Stars are going to clash in this district. I'm really excited to see how this one pans out. You look at the bottom of your screen, Lexington. They draw the 2 seed, a team that was upset early on, or they were in a tougher district last year with Shelby in the mix, as we just talked about them. They take on Madison in their first round pairing, and then they take on the winner of Ontario and Norwalk. I'm looking at the Warriors to potentially upset that Norwalk Trucker team, and that would lead for a really solid district semifinal between a Annie Weaver-led Ontario team and an Ava Brown-led Lexington squad. So keep an eye out for that in this district. Looking at D4 Central 1 now. Highland, they have been a high focus here in the area as they just took down 20-0 previously Pleasant in their final MOAC game of the year in an effort to split the MOAC title this year. Big stuff from them. They sit in the bottom half of this bracket. The Fighting Scots will have to take on Marion Franklin, and then after that, they could see their MOAC foe, River Valley, for a 3rd time this season, who take on Eastmore, which is more of a question mark or an unknown here in this district because they've only played 14 games this year compared to everyone else sitting much higher than that. Moving to Central 2, we stay in Division 4. Fredericktown is the main name that we will highlight here. They draw the 4 seed despite a 10-loss season. That just tells you that the schedule that they have played has been a gauntlet. They have taken massive strides since starting the year 2 and 5, and those Lady Freddies are looking to make their way all the way to Mount Vernon Nazarene University, which is where this district's championship game would be played, but they would have to get past both Kip and also Licking Valley or potentially Heath, depending on how that game goes underneath them on the bracket. Top half of this one, Bishop Reedy is definitely a problem. Going to be exciting to see if they can make it all the way to a district championship to potentially take on the Freddies in what would be a great battle here in Division 4, Central 2. Jumping to Division 5 now, Central 1, the aforementioned Pleasant Spartans just took a rough loss via the sweep to Highland. They have opted not to take the bye. They give Afrocentric a bump to the district semifinals as the Nubians will await the winner of Pleasant and Liberty Union. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be Pleasant. But moving to the bottom half of this bracket with some other teams that we are familiar with. Northmore, the Lady Golden Knights, looking to potentially upset Johnstown Monroe on Tuesday next week. If they can win there, they would take on another tough squad in the LCL. Potentially in Utica, Amanda Clear Creek. Of course, they've got to get past them first, but Utica, always a good squad when it comes to volleyball within the last couple of seasons. And finally, D5 Central 2. The Centerburg Lady Trojans sit alone with our area teams here. Northridge is going to be a tough out for them. They will take them on as a 7 seed, despite this being their 3rd straight season with at least a share of the KMAC title. A lower seed for these Centerburg Trojans, so they will have to prove themselves against some really formidable opponents. Madison Plains would be their potential district's semifinal opponent if they can get past Grove City Christian. And Fairbanks sits in the district semis right now, awaiting the winner of North Union and Columbus Academy. Those Panthers are a tough out, along with Pleasant, which are the top 2 teams in this district. And the Lady Trojans are looking for yet another postseason run this year, as we got to follow them all the way over towards Dayton for a regional semifinal game. Coach Abigail Boudinot is going to join us here to talk a little bit about that previous season and the path to another potential tournament run this year. So let's welcome in Coach Boudinot now. Coach, just taking a look at that district, what's your overall takeaway and the mindset that your team has heading into this gauntlet that is the Central District in Division 5?
Yeah, it's a big difference for us. We were at Division 6 last year, and so being the newbies to Division 5, we're actually the smallest school in Division 5, I knew that we were going to have to prove ourselves. So we got seeded 7th, which isn't necessarily where I thought we would be placed, but it's an opportunity for us to show everyone the strength that we have. We have some really excellent teams in this Central District, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how it all kind of shakes out at the end.
Yeah, and for those that don't know how the volleyball draw works, the number 1 seed in each district gets their first pick of where they go on the bracket, and then it goes up all the way up to, I believe, 14 in your specific district. But you guys were at 7. You had a lot of choices, but you plop yourself there for a game against close by Northridge. What's kind of the mindset from you and your team as you decided to plop yourselves there?
Yeah, so it ended up being really fortunate that I got to kind of see where everybody else was thinking, and then I got to pick a place that I thought was going to be best for us. So, prior to the meeting, I was having discussions with my other coaches and looking at some film and comparing, our big wins against other people's big wins and looking at what was going to be a good matchup for us. So I ended up coming up with a list of people I'd like to avoid in some gyms I would like to avoid having to play at the higher seed. There are some gyms in this county that are ill-equipped for volleyball. It's very low ceilings, and it's not always the most great environment to play in. So I was really happy with how we ended up. Northridge is a great gym, a good team that I think we have a solid chance against.
Yeah, absolutely. And then putting a little pause on the talk for next week, let's go ahead and take a look back to the regional semifinals. You guys played a really tough team in Coldwater that ended up going all the way and winning a state title in Division 6. Just tell me on that run before you get to Coldwater, what worked for you guys, what didn't, what was your overall blueprint that allowed you guys to have so much success?
Sure. I really harp consistency and composure when they're playing. So we really look at what we're doing all the time, and then it's my job to figure out, where they need to kind of put the ball and things that the other team is doing. So that I can feed them that information in match. And we had a really strong leadership team last year with our seniors, and they just did an excellent job just motivating and pushing everybody kind of towards the end there. And even playing against Coldwater, we kept our composure very well and didn't just back down from a challenge, and they were obviously a very large challenge, having a very successful team.
Yeah, and Coach, coming back to 2025, you lose those seniors. This is a really young team, but I like to call them seasoned because they all got some great experience last year, and of course, the load of work they've seen this year, winning another KMAC title. What did they learn over the summer, and what kind of translated and kind of developed along the season as well to get them where they are, a 7 seed in a tough district?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important that the players are competitive out of season as well. And my players do a great job in club. I have some players that are in very high advanced club teams that do a great job. And then I have other players that don't play club, and they're very competitive in other sports. And I'm a very big component for multi-sport athletes. I think it's super important for kids these days to not only use their body in the one way that volleyball does, that they, are changing their muscle groupings and movements and things so they're not prone to injury.
100%. Coach, thank you so much for your time. It wouldn't be an OH Report interview without giving you some time to give some shout outs.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. How nice of you. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on one and always making sure that you're at, some important games. So a shout out to the OH Report. I really do appreciate you guys putting a shining light on volleyball. And my team that, I think they've put in so much hard work, and the parents that support us every day. And I wouldn't be able to do this job without my husband being able to help out at home as well, and my 2 kids, Mackenzie and Rhett. So.
All right, Coach, best of luck the rest of the way. Look forward to seeing you as we get closer to the districts and regionals and states and everything that makes volleyball exciting this time of year.
Thank you so much.
Had to get my KMAC fix in with Coach Boudinot. Thank you so much to her for joining us to talk a little bit about the postseason, which is going to be very exciting to break down as we continue our tournament run and our tournament talk here. But first, we got to take a break and thank our sponsors, Bob and Bob Door.
The Block Party, North Central Ohio's only volleyball show, is presented live and free to fans by the door experts at Bob & Bob Door Company, dedicated to providing fast, friendly, and reliable service for over 56 years. And now, let's get you back to The Block Party, streaming exclusively on OH Report.
This question I'm going to ask you right now, will you please look in the camera and give some shout-outs?
My mom, she can't be here right now, but I know she's going to watch this, so there's that.
Anytime.
And then my whole team that I played with, I love them to death, I swear.
Well,
I wouldn't do it without them.
First and foremost, I'd like to shout out God and, again, Kennedy for really, I couldn't imagine a better coach this season and a way to end it, and my parents for always supporting.
Shout out to my mom and my stepdad, and shout out to my brother and my sister and my team, and we're doing great.
Shout out to all my teammates and my family for supporting me throughout everything. Sorry, I'm crying.
Welcome back into the Block Party. My name is Jonathan Langdon. Let's get back into these tournament brackets. We already went through 7 of the 17 that we wanted to highlight with you. So still plenty more to go. And we're going to jump right back into Division 5. And we're headed to the Northeast District. This is Northeast 2, Triway and Orrville, both new teams to our OH Report area. The Pac-7 champions in the Triway Titans sit as the 10 seed. They will have a pretty interesting task at hand as they take on Fairview to start their tournament run, and then they take on the winner of Beechwood and Garfield if they can get past that point. Orrville, the 15 seed, they play South Range on the road, and then they will have to play potentially and probably Berkshire if they can escape past the Raiders. So the Red Riders, they have a little bit of a path ahead of them. Triway, they are the second favorites by seeding to make their way all the way to a district championship game, but it would be unique for us to see Triway and Orrville take each other on for a potential district championship matchup. Division 5 Northwest 2 we go. Galleon and Crestview are the names that we're going to highlight here. They're both at the top of this bracket. Galleon, a rough season for them. They will have to play at the hands of Huron. Huron's a tough team, and Galleon, it's going to be a real uphill battle to potentially come out with a win, but the Battle of Tigers there should be interesting to note, along with Crestview. This Cougar squad in a good spot to make a decent run of things. Crestview, headed up by Coach Kennedy Goon, has a great group of seniors that could make some noise, so keep an eye on that number 3 seed towards the top. They can make their way all the way against Archbold, a team that is really exciting over in Northwest Ohio. A lot of high expectations for the Blue Streaks this year, but Crestview looking to play spoilers in our area at least. And wrapping up Division 5 with the Northwest 3 district, Willard sits as the number 1 seed here as they take on Clear Fork, a team that was fighting in the MOAC just to try and stay out of the bottom feeders of that league. But we see the Colts here in a 7 seed, and they'll have to take on a tough Crimson Flashes squad. And the winner of that game will take on a potential Cinderella candidate in my eyes, Western Reserve, the Rough Riders. They have been tested with a rougher schedule this year. They take on an Edison squad that we don't know much about, but Western Reserve, we do know about them and how dangerous they can be. They were certainly in the Firelands a few times. Just extending matches, if they can do that, they could potentially put an upset on Edison, and they would take on likely Willard in that district semifinal. Up at the top half of the bracket, Otsego gets the bye thanks to Liberty Benton opting to take this game against Paulding up top. The Eagles, we got to see them last year as they were beat by Shelby, who ultimately made it to the Final Four. But Liberty Benton and those Eagles, without the Whippets in the conversation of yesteryear, they could also make a run to potentially win this district and move on to regionals from there. Division 6 we go, heading back to the Central District as we see 3 KMAC teams in this bracket, all pretty much going to have to work for a potential sectional title as they have a sectional semi, in fact. Cardington plays West Jefferson, Grandview Heights is going to take on Mount Gilead, East Knox plays Tree of Life, The seeds for those three teams in the KMAC are 9, 10, and 11, so definitely some work to do in this bracket. Would definitely be a Cinderella run if any of those three made it to the district semifinals. Northeast District now we move, as the Hillsdale Falcons are also going to have a sectional semifinal. They play Black River on the road. If they can win that one, they'll play a tough Andrews Osborne team. And there's a couple of other WCAL opponents in this bracket. You see Smithville, a team that gave Hillsdale fits this season, Waynedale as well on the bottom half of this bracket. Mapleton sits at the number 32 seed, if you're wondering about that. All of the Northeast District is seeded 1 through, I think it's like somewhere in the 40s where that number gets cut off. But that makes the seeds look a little bit whack here, but some top heavy hitters in this district with 6, 12, 8, and 11 all set to do battle potentially in a district tournament. Staying in Division 6, we move to the Northwest District. We've got 2 of these districts that we'll highlight. This is the big one. Let's go ahead and park here for a little bit, because Buckeye Central, one of the teams that is going to end up splitting the N10 title, sits as the 1 seed in this district. They will take on a Bucyrus team that we're familiar with in the N10 as well. Buckette's just as familiar too. And then New London takes on Mansfield Christian in that other half of the top half of this bracket. New London Lady Wildcats actually upset Buckeye Central last year in a district championship game. If they do meet this year, it would be in a semifinal, but you know that the Buckettes have that in the back of their mind as they draw this area in the tournament, and they're going to be looking to go into that semifinal smelling blood for New London for a chance to get the win over them and then propel themselves to a potential district championship with Cary, which is the number 2 seed in this area. And interesting with how the Northwest District is also set up, there can be 2 1 seeds in a district, and you see that case here with Van Buren. So that Van Buren team could be a tough out for Cary. But in my eyes, I trust the Lady Blue Devils to get a win over Van Buren and set up an all N10 championship in this district. There will be something to keep an eye on as we move forward. Northwest 4, some more Northern 10 teams in the conversation, all at the bottom of this bracket. Colonel Crawford, they draw a tough one as they've got the number 1 seed New Bremen Cardinals to deal with, potentially with a district championship if they can get out, as they take on Bucyrus. And then jumping down to Seneca East, the number 4 seed, they have some fits. They have a great player in Bryn Meyer, who's just a junior who could start to spark up and help this Lady Tiger squad exceed expectations in the tournament. So that's your Northwest District. Thinking back to Northwest 3, we did say Bucyrus was the 8 seed in that one. It is actually Winford there who will take on Buckeye Central. Moving to Division 7, the Northwest 2 district. We're going to skip one for now because we want to jump to Tiffin Calvert, a team that is a favorite to make it not just out of this district, but all the way out to a potential state championship or even a state championship win. So they take on St. Peter's, and then Crestline and Lucas will rematch up for an MBC extension, as those 2 teams had some good battles throughout this season. Crestline and Lucas, that'll be one to keep an eye on. May have that one live and free on the OH report here. We'll find out soon enough. Bottom half of the bracket, New Regal, a team that will join the N10 next season. Those Blue Jackets will look to make a run to a district championship game. Only teams in their way are Upper Scioto, who they face in that sectional game, and then also Arcadia, and a team that we got to see a couple weeks ago, Ridgemont, those Golden Gophers. They have Cinderella potential. Keep an eye on that number 6 seed at the very bottom of this district. Northwest 5 we go, the champions of the Firelands Conference, Monroeville, outright. They win that league undefeated thanks to their win against St. Paul last week. They have opted to take this bye, and they will await the winner of St. Joseph Central Catholic and Horizon Science, 2 teams that will be looking for to put upset on their minds. And then moving to the bottom half of the bracket, Mohawk, another hot team, sitting with a share of the and 10 title. They will have a tough one right out of the gates against Hopewell Loudon, and those Chieftains looking to make some early noise and knock down a team that is as hot as they've ever been in Mohawk. So that will be one to keep an eye on. Underneath that, Old Fort and Plymouth will battle, but Mohawk and Monroeville certainly the favorites to get out of this district. And circling back to Northwest 1, this is an interesting one when you see all of the opponents that the St. Paul Flyers are going to have to face. Eden, Stryker, Edgerton, Toledo Central Catholic, Cardinal Stritch. You notice where all of those other schools are in comparison to Norwalk? Yes, that's going to be a long commute for these St. Paul Flyers who made it all the way to a state Final Four last year. They're going to have to have some really long bus drives in this district. Could be a factor when you look at the teams they play. Central Catholic, not an easy out, taking on any sort of Toledo area team that has their roots in volleyball. Danbury is a team that played well last year. They're looking to build off of that and have another good tournament run here this season. And in that top half of the bracket, any of those three teams who are all right around the area where the district championship is going to be played in this district over at Archbold, any of those three teams can make it there, and it would be probably sitting not any less than 20-minute drives for them to get to Archbold compared to what Norwalk would probably have to make an hour and a half, maybe hour 45-minute drive. So home field advantage definitely not in favor of St. Paul in this district, but I'm excited to see how it shakes up. So we get a chance to reveal St. Paul in the bracket. Now we get a chance to reveal the head coach for this group, Angie Kalizewski, joining us here from Norwalk, St. Paul. Thank you so much for coming on to kind of talk about your draw in the bracket. We just revealed it. Just tell me how you're feeling going out of Sunday with your path to potential run at Dayton yet again.
You know, everything's new this year, so it's been a good experience. I like the new setup. It gives everybody a little bit better chance to meet different people and, you know, head in different directions across the state, play people that you normally don't see, which is always great. Kind of showcase different talents that maybe have had to beat up on each other for the last few years. So I think it's great.
Well, Coach, let's jump right to last year. It was a year for you guys, making it all the way down to Wright State. We got a chance to call your semifinal against a tough Calvert team that's going to be just as tough this year. But what point in the 2024 season, when your team was working through, getting a couple of wins, when did you start to realize that a trip like that could materialize?
You know, it's one of those things. As a coach, I preach and talk to my kids and train my kids that we do not ever want to look past the game that's right in front of us. And we work really hard all year to just know that ultimately the end goal is what's important, but we can't get there without meeting each goal along the way. So we just kind of slowly took our time and worked out all the kinks and worked as a team and focused on becoming a really tight unit and doing all the things that we needed to do. And you could just slowly see that they were buying in and they were getting excited and they were working hard for each other and no other reason. And that's ultimately what I think drove us to get to where we were. And they played for one another and they did great.
And I think there's no doubt that the play in the area has significantly improved from last year. We see it in your record this season, a little bit lower than that state semifinal team, but you guys have played in some really tough games, and that's why I'm very high on you when it comes to this district and making it out alive. Just tell me, I'm thinking of the game against Mohawk a couple weeks ago, thinking about the Monroeville game you guys just went through last week. Just tell me what the playoff atmosphere that's come a little bit early over there to the high school gym.
You know, that's one of those things as a coach you try to design along the way. You want to work hard to get that schedule to what you need it to be to make sure you're competing all year. Ultimately, you won't be prepared at the end. We made some changes to our schedule this year that have resulted in a few losses that we didn't have last year, but ultimately have given us way more experience, gameplay, and a lot more for us to work for and see some other people across the state. So, you know, we played Mohawk, we played Monroeville, we have great 5-set matches. We just played Old Fort last night and dominated in 3, which was great for us. It's exactly what we want. We want to set up to where we are working hard and getting things harder and harder as we go, so that by the end, we know what to expect and how to work hard.
And there's no doubt in volleyball that there's definitely tiers. You guys are starting to lean into that higher tier. Heading into the real thing now, what's going to be the key for you guys? Because you have, as you said, lost a couple of 4 or 5 setters. What's it going to take to turn those into wins?
You know, I think we're right there. I think the things that we've lost, each game I've seen us come back and get stronger at and make it a point to know that that was a weakness for us. And we focused on it at practice in the next match. And that's what I want. That's what we want to do. We want to have those losses early so that when it comes to us later, we know the mistakes we made and that we can turn it around. I'm glad we're put in those positions. I'm glad that that's what's, kind of where we're at. Ultimately, yes, we'd love to see those become wins earlier. But for us right now, we're doing what we want to do. We want to work through them. We want to build on it and get better so that we can just keep moving for the rest of this term.
All right, Coach Kalizewski, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck the rest of the way. Final question for you. Go ahead and give any shout outs you want.
Oh, I just want to shout out the girls and all the parents and the helpers, my family in general. These kids work hard every day, and our parents do a lot to make sure that they, have everything they need. And for me, I can't coach and do things that I do without my family and our support system and our coaching staff. So I just love everybody that's putting everything they've got into this and making it such a great experience for our girls.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Best of luck to Coach Kalizewski and her team at St. Paul as they go and take a long drive for their district this year. Really excited to break down all 17 of these brackets. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Block Party. We'll be taking a little bit of a hiatus to let things kind of sizzle with sectionals and district tournaments. We will return for the regional tournament week as we have episode 5 of the Block Party to see who's left and get excited about a potential state run for some of our area teams. Shout out, as always, to Adam Thompson, our producer. I'm Jonathan Langdon. Shout out again to Bob and Bob Dorr from Mansfield, bringing you all of these episodes as we've got 2 more of these coming for the rest of this volleyball season right here on the 08.